Oh man. So Alexander McKay, how are you? It has been a hot minute.
It has been a fucking long time. I've been pretty well, you know. I mean, last time I saw you was probably like you were still 22 or 23, and I was, probably just about going into my first year of college around that time, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that seems about
Um,
right. Cause I seem to remember like I was working in Rochester for a bit, and I think you were at U of M down there, right?
yep,
Okay.
yep. You
And
were at
so did
IBM,
you
weren't
do
you?
all 4 years there?
Yep. Finished in 2017, and then I'll talk about this later on, but yeah, I got my certification through ACSM for personal training, and now I'm back in school getting my master's and stuff. And one of those experiences.
And so did you get your degree in like exercise science or something like that, or something totally different?
Totally, oh, not totally different. I got it in health sciences.
Okay.
My plan was kind of to go to physical therapy school post graduation. I thought of that, spring semester of my senior year. So I was super prepared to go to physical therapy. Um, as kind of like a resume builder, I applied for one of the places I shadowed, which was exercise abilities, which is where I'm at now. And didn't get into school, was kind of like, okay, I'll get my certification, see if that helps, and then kind of fell in love with training. So that's kind of what brought me to the realm I'm in today.
So you work at, you said exercise abilities.
Yes, and I don't want to sound bad because people probably see this. It's confusing at first to spell it out. It's all one word, and it's just exercise without the final E, and then putting in the A there, abilities.
Okay.
Um, it's on the back of this shirt, actually. I don't know if you can see it. Um,
Apparently.
and it's not like I wore this just for this. It's just I haven't changed.
So what exactly is that, and what do you do there?
So it started out as this project my CEO created. Her name's Melanie Brennan. She's super smart, doctor of physical therapy. Um, she started Exercise Abilities as a kind of medical fitness clinic, mostly for physical therapy, as well as for some training for people who have more special needs. Today, it's very much still physical therapy, but I am under the role called a therapeutic health specialist. And that encompasses, personal training, wellness. Some of us do health coaching. I have adaptive sports and recreation on my side of things, kind of an approach to wellness, health, fitness, holistically kind of minded things for our population of Rochester, southern Minnesota, and then like a lot of disabled people, individuals with chronic conditions like MS, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury. So my clientele for personal training is a lot of people who are in group homes or need assisted living and so on.
Dude, that's pretty awesome. So I mean
It's a fun gig.
yeah, you get to give back in a ton of ways, but in some I'm sure that it's super challenging just because a lot of those people are going to have a lot of the heaviness that comes along with having injuries or lifelong things like MS and whatnot. So that's got to be a
Right.
challenge as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to kind of gauge what you should do with that kind of person, especially because I didn't have that background in exercise science. I have, anatomy and physiology and like all of my undergrad related to health sciences. So I knew a little bit going in, but you really don't get the experience until you actually go to EA and experience it for yourself. I mean, you have like recommendations through ACSM, the NASA, not NASA, NACM, and other various ACE fitness that show you like what is the proper way to train someone with autism or obesity or diabetes, etc. And it's kind of weird to kind of put it into perspective once you're actually in the situation, because you don't really expect that you're going to have to be training a client that's in a wheelchair, has no mobility of their legs, has one arm, and cannot speak to you.
Yeah,
So
just those types of challenges above just the normal challenge of just trying to create a program where you could have some clients that haven't ever done a push-up before, and then you have another person that's like, well, I want to get to sub 7% body fat, and
right,
they're a bodybuilder. Well, those two people, those programs are going to look so different. And then if you're like, oh, and by the way, I can't do anything with my legs either, but I also have to have ripped legs, like that's a totally different challenge.
right, exactly. And it it's kind of a step back for me, because I'm on that side where I love strength training. I love, for lack of a better term, bodybuilding type training, like hypertrophy training, um, as well as training for like athleticism and sport. And that kind of varies throughout the year and how I'm feeling. Right now, I'm in a space where I'm a little bit chunkier than I'd like to be, because I'm trying to like bulk up quite a bit and then get super freaking shredded for when I go to Hawaii in April, and
Yeah.
but that's not something I would give like one of my clients at my job. Like, it's just the goal there is totally different. That's kind of something that you need to put in perspective as a trainer. Like, not everyone is here to have the Instagram booty and have shredded abs and pecs and stuff. Like, for me, yeah, I want that. But like, it's also putting in perspective, like, you need to know when and where that's appropriate.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. I mean, I've been talking to my wife, my mom, and my stepdad, and just giving them all pointers about eating a little bit healthier and doing a little bit more. And a lot of what I'll talk to them about is like, I've got a certain goal right now, which is like 6-pack abs. I want to be in the healthiest shape I've ever been, sort of thing. But that by
Exactly.
no means is healthy. Like, I could have stopped, 4, 5, 6% ago and still be in a healthy body weight. And I think for somebody that's like, I just want to have the energy to keep up with life's tasks and my kids and all of that sort of thing, well, then your goal should be about something totally different from me, who's going to be probably trying to watch carbs and fats and proteins. For that person, you're just really just at that point trying to eat healthy and live right, work on mobility and things like that. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, that's that's cool. So was it getting into kind of training and getting those certifications that led you to your job, or was it your job that led you to then getting all the certifications?
A little bit of both. It was, me going to school and into college where I kind of realized that I need to be in better shape. Not necessarily that I think that I was like out of shape, but I knew that I was not eating correctly. I did not have a good background of, you know, exercise in general. And I was kind of just like not happy with how I looked and how I felt on a daily basis. And I was like, I need to change something. So throughout my 4 years at UMR, I discovered like people doing workout videos, looking at a bunch of different programs. I did fucking, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
I did every diet imaginable that I could. And speaking of which, I do intermittent fasting, which is not, I do it for me. It's not something that I think is like super necessary. If you want to talk about it later, we can. But um,
Do you
it
do it right now for 8 hours or for 12?
so mine is a little bit differently. I kind of wake up and I just don't eat until like my lunch hour, which typically is around noon or 1. Um, I like to just eat later. I have a bowl of Cheerios right now next to me. So I like to eat at night. And I know, like, to manage my weight and manage my calorie intake, I should eat later in the day and not, pile on meal after meal after meal, because I know no matter what, if I'm eating at 8 a.m., I'm still going to eat right now. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be satiated through the entire day. And that's just kind of what I found out about my body. Um,
That's that's actually the exact same for me. Like, I found that everyone was like, you got to eat breakfast. That's like the most important meal sort of thing. So I'd wake up, I'd force feed myself something. I'd always feel nauseous. I hated eating breakfast. And now, like, I was like, well, why? So I just,
Right.
I eat around like 11 typically, and then I'll eat
Mhm.
until about 10 at night. But for a while, and that's because I'm bulking right now. And so I'm just trying to space it out because I hate eating that freaking much. But
Yep.
yeah, normally, I try to eat from like 11 until 7, and then I'd eat for those 8 hours, and then I'd fast for 16, I guess. And so,
Right. And it's just a simple way to control it. Like, that's kind of the way I approach it. I've seen people talk about, you know, improve brain function or improve fat mobility or fat mobilization and, increase thermogenesis or a bunch of other these studies. But there are studies that say it. There are studies that really don't have that much of a significant um, factor to it. So it all just comes down, for me anyway, is what is most sustainable for me? How can I approach dieting? And someone who definitely still has some issues, not as much, but previous issues of like binge eating and things like that. Um, it was way easier to push it all off until later in the day where I can better control how I eat.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, that was kind of something I started in 2016. So that's been 5 years now, right? Yeah,
yeah,
2021. Yeah, so right before I went to Sydney, I started doing that, and then Sydney is kind of where I figured out that I want to do physical therapy. I was doing music therapy, and I was doing like workouts on Bondi Beach, and I was just loving life there, man. It was great, and I was kind of like, I like doing this, and I like doing like seeing people get better. How do I mix those two? And I kind of found, like, oh, there's already a profession like this. So found out how to get in there, what kind of things I needed, and that led me to shadow a bunch of places, including EA, which my freshman year RA was a rehab tech at. So I kind of got the in there and then applied for a job a few months later. And the rest is, I'm there.
yeah,
So throughout that position there, I was kind of like, you know what, I'm going to get my training certificate. I want to train my own clients instead of just helping. I want to learn this so I can do more for them. I want to know why they have low back pain or why I can help them with that. Oh, this is not a flattering angle.
you gotta like hold it up above your head so that the neck skin tucks up.
Oh my God. But yeah, that was kind of an off track thing. But yeah, essentially, it was a mix of life experiences telling me that I wanted to be in better shape for myself. And then learning more about it, it kind of sparked an interest of education on it. What am I doing? What movements are doing this for my body? How can my body move? Um, and what kind of, I don't know, learning like the kinesiology and anatomy of your muscles was so much more interesting for me post grad for some reason. I wish I had this kind of drive when I was actually in school, because then I probably would have had to retake A&P.
Yeah, dude. Well, shit. I mean, my kind of like rock bottom started in like fall of 2017. Like I had just left a lot of trauma unchecked, and so like
Mm,
childhood stuff, and then toxic male environment sort of thing, getting bullied all the time and whatnot. A lot of alcoholism present in life, and so that then I go and I join the Air Force and I get deployed. And although we weren't in any direct combat over there in Saudi, it was still like a heightened environment. We're checking cars for bombs and whatnot. And so I think it just took a kind of scared kid that was always, used to the world picking on him. And then it taught me how to be really good at being hyper vigilant and catch things. So then I like couldn't learn how to turn that off. So then I kind of became a prick over the years. And I couldn't show vulnerability. And so I learned that if I could manipulate things and control the environment, that then I wouldn't have to deal with certain things. And so I just got kind of shitty. And as I got shitty, then I found myself that I was a trash person, and eventually you tell yourself something enough, then you're going to believe it. And so I
Right.
believed it and then I acted like it. And yeah, it was just like from 2017 until the beginning of 2020, it was a real rough few years. And I finally, in that time frame though, I was like running in tries, and I was doing these long ruck marches and whatnot. And so like physically I was fit, but I was always sick and I would get injured all the time and whatnot. So I finally kind of realized, I was like, I think if I'm ever going to get into shape and really get better, it begins with my mental health. And so I began therapy and I really was working on cleaning up some bad habits and whatnot.
Mhm.
But then beyond that, it I kind of had that same urge where I was like, I need to understand like the science behind how bodies work. And I go and I run 10 miles, but I don't like have any idea anymore. I mean, I haven't done track and cross country since freaking Cannon Falls High. And so like everything that I used to know about being a runner, I just go out there like some 32-year-old idiot now. I'm pulling things and whatnot. And it was like
Right.
training filled in the gaps of someone that's always been a pretty athletic person their entire life, but didn't really know what they were doing. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, shit, I'm not getting hurt all the time. Yeah, maybe it's because I know what I'm doing and I'm working, like the antagonist muscles and the agonist ones and all of that. And it makes a huge
Mhm.
difference.
Right. And, I kind of had the same experience where as soon as I realized like the way your body wants to move and like push an object or pull an object, or like the way your core reacts to like certain movements and how you need to brace yourself for a squat or a deadlift, it made everything weirdly easier because like you were acknowledging like, oh, I should feel it right here, so I'm just going to focus on that, realize my form. Video playback is also a big thing for me because I never really used it. I would just kind of be like, oh yeah, look at all my pull-ups I'm doing. And then I kind of looked at myself and I was like, wait a second, let's step back here. What can I do better? How can I fix this? And um, in the same way, I thought about, because I hate this analogy because for one, I'm terrible with it. But like the body is so much more like a machine or like a car. That's kind of why I hate it, because I don't know shit about cars. I know stuff about the
Me
body,
both.
and I'm like, hey, like it's not your battery, it's your alternator. I don't know.
Put in the blinker fluid. It'll be fine.
Exactly. But like figuring out like, okay, what part of me is in dysfunction and how can I correct that? And also reaching out to people who do know, because I can only know so much. And I have the privilege of working with, a team of physical therapists as well and other trainers that I can refer to and say, hey, my hips feel like they're super out of place and just wonky. What's going on here? Can you correct it and tell me what I might have done to do that? Um, so it's been kind of a process to learn that. And I'm assuming you're learning that too with all the certifications you got, which congratulations. That's really great to have. And I'm
Yeah,
super,
thanks,
like,
man.
I was super jazzed when I saw that you did that, because I've seen so many people on like social media and especially like Instagram, like fitness people that is kind of like, all right, here's my fitness page. And you don't know anything.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like you're
Like you're
just
just someone that watched a YouTube video and you're doing some dance hip hop workout now because it looks cool, but like, nah, dude.
yeah,
Like,
you're
yeah,
spewing knowledge that you didn't really learn yourself. You're just kind of reiterating something you heard and putting it back out there without any kind of reflection on it. And so that's why I applauded you so much for actually putting in the work to get that certification, not only in the training, but also in like, what was it, wellness and something else?
yeah. So I did the certified personal trainer, the transformation specialist, which
Mm,
is all about like the psychology of things, um, tactical fitness specialist. So that's all about like functional workouts and whatnot. And then I'm about to finish up with the nutrition one. And so
nice.
I kind of wanted it for that fact that it was like mind and body and diet, like it combined it all. And a lot of the workouts that I do right now, like I've started to realize like running is probably not for me any longer. I've had low back pain for years and years and years now. And the one thing that I've done consistently is ran, because it's the only real thing that I've ever been good at as far as like real working out is just
Mhm.
cardio. And so I've always ran. Well, now I took a bunch of time off. I went to um, the doctor and I had my back worked on and whatnot and just, you know, adjusted. And all of a sudden I don't have back pain. So I realized, okay, well, I got to find a different way of working out. So that got me into HIIT. Well, I don't like doing like the beach body workouts where it's just like the same type of thing over and over again. And it's like, you know, you're watching all these 8 people do it on the TV. So I finally, like, there was one day that I had a bunch of crap out back and I had to smash that into littler pieces. And so I'm just whacking on this shit with this hammer. And I was like, man, this is a hell of a workout. And then I was like, oh my God. And so now
This is a
I
workout.
do like pull-ups and medicine ball slams and, you know, weird push-up variations and whatnot.
Yep.
And that was what kind of, then I was like, okay, well, I'm doing these workouts, but I'm still working out solo. That gets a little bit boring. So I was like, I gotta have a goal. I have to have something that I'm going to do with this. And so then I joined a jujitsu gym recently, and
Oh,
like
okay.
I fell in love. Like that is church for me. And so I do that five days a week now. And like all the functional workouts that I do, and I do yoga now too, it's all like helping my body to be better at that. And so the yoga really helps to open up a lot of muscles that I never, you know, have worked on for years and years. So like my hip flexors are shit, you know, my abductors are shit. And so I really need the yoga for that. And then I do these weird workouts where I'm in weird various positions, but it works great for rolling around on the mat then.
You would have a great conversation with my friend Zach. He is all about, if you've heard of functional patterns, he's done jujitsu for, God, I don't know how long. He's 28. So he's like, I think he's been doing it since maybe a little bit after high school. He's a testing for his purple belt soon, I think. I hope I'm not wrong right now. Otherwise, if he ever sees this, he's going to be
She'll
mad at
be
me.
choking you out for it.
Yeah, and not this isn't a slight to you at all. But as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, you definitely look like a jiu-jitsu guy. That just seems like something you would enjoy, like um, grappling and things like that. It's interested me, but I'm like, that's just not my sport. Like, I would love to get into it, but with all the other time I have, like, I want to dedicate to, like, I'm still a basketball player. I still love music. So that's kind of this training style that I'm leaning towards, is like, how can I be more explosive? How can I be stronger? How can I do this and that and blah blah blah. But it's really cool to think that um, because you only knew running, that was like the thing that you kept doing. It's like, well, it's exercise, right? But then low back pain. Oh, I'm just going to keep running through it and do that, do that. Kind of take that self reflection, realize I need to fix something. Like I need to go get my, God damn it, my car checked. Check engine light came on. I hate that I'm doing all these car metaphors. I really hate it. But they're so easy. Um, and yeah, just to kind of realize like the wood shopping is such, because so many exercises are like a cable wood shop, or even like overhead movements or like shoulder mobility. Those are all
Mm-hmm.
things that are super important and you use in daily activity. And even at the place I work right now is super important for us to not only think about, a lateral raise or a rear delt fly for our shoulders. We got to think of our shoulders and all the ranges of motion they can move. And for someone, it's, I want to reach up and just grab something off my shelf. That's their goal.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think a lot of
yeah,
real simple things, right? Like picking a weight up in front of you like this is a real easy way of just interacting with a child. And so whether you're a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, I mean, little things we take for granted, being able to bend down and pick up a 30-pound kid. You know, those are all things that I really kind of, when it's not jujitsu and, you know, my vain want for abs that are getting me to work out, I think the better side of me really looks at like, I want to be the dad that's really in shape, that's running around and is playing and going hiking and doing all of those activities and not limited because I didn't take care of myself. And I do think, you know, one thing that I've really started to understand more of is whatever you put into your body is what you're going to get out. And, you know, and so if you put shit food into yourself, you're gonna have shit, you know, and you're gonna, your energy is gonna be shit. If,
Yeah.
and the same thing goes for mental health. If all that you're doing is negative self-talk and surrounding yourself with negative energy and whatnot, you're going to produce something negative. And that I think was the other side of what I really learned was, you know, I do a triad, and when I'd have a focus, I'd be real good and dedicated. But then all of a sudden, I had achieved that goal, and then I wouldn't have anything to keep myself busy. And that's when I'd get back into, you know, boozing a little bit too heavy or just eating like crap because I was hanging out on the weekends all the time and I wasn't really focused on doing something healthy. And then the next thing you know, you're like, well, I've skipped a week. I might as well skip another week. And then
Mm.
you go 8, 9 months and don't work out. And man, I think that picture that I shared recently, I was like 170 pounds and I'm now at like 140. And it's crazy to think that those 30 pounds didn't just happen overnight. It was in like 2 or 3 years of just little bit by little bit.
Yeah. Time can go by a lot faster when you don't realize that you're like checking in with yourself. And that's kind of the biggest thing. Um, Claire was a big part of this. I was going through some really terrible anxiety, some terrible depression, and it was just anything. I was so fearful that I was going to lose Claire. I was going to lose friends. I was going to do something. Like it was just always worried about something. If I said something wrong or if someone wasn't happy with me, that would just trigger me to think that I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Like this is going to go away. You're going to be sad. And I would just ruminate on that over and over again. So to kind of get the push to be like, you have to check in with yourself. You have to go seek help and have them like just talk to somebody about it. And I think that's the biggest thing is that as soon as you start to realize you're checking in with yourself and talking with somebody, you kind of put in perspective that it's okay to feel something at some point. It's okay to feel low and then check in with that and think, why are you feeling low? What can I do to fix this? What caused this? Almost like just reiterating that kind of like checks and balances kind of feeling. And that itself kind of can tie back into your physical fitness where you're thinking of like, I'm in pain. Why am I in pain? How can I make this part of my body stronger to resist pain or to move better? And the funny thing is, even like with posture, the better posture you have, don't ask me the chemical reactions or like the science behind it, but typically with better posture, you have better mood. You have elevated serotonin, dopamine, something where your the alignment of your spine is just helping you feel more uplifted. And typically people with poorer posture have more of that depressive tendency. Don't quote me on studies.
Yeah, dude, it's like weird little things like that like breathing. Like if you
Mhm.
feel anxiety coming on, if you stop and if you can just take 5 deep breaths. I actually bought this little thing, it's called a shift, and like it's just a hollowed out little tube. And so like you breathe in through your nose and it's like the perfect width to where your out breath will be longer than the breath in. And so you do it 5 times, and the same thing, dopamine or serotonin, one of those calming hormones will be released, and then you get this just natural calming effect. And that's fantastic but at the same time, I think it's one of those things that people just ignore because it's so easy and it sounds so dumb. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's one of the things is when it comes to your mental health, a lot of us just kind of push it down or we just act like it's not really a big deal and we ruminate on it and we start that negative self-talk. And I think, the one thing that you mentioned that's super important is that when we check in with ourselves, you start to question some of these beliefs and you start going, okay, well, I'm chasing this title or this salary or whatever this is, but why am I? And then you start to realize like, well, it's these insecurities driving that, but not really you, like not the true you. And then you're
Hmm.
like, okay, well, I really don't have a lot of time to get into shape and to be healthy, but I only don't have that time because I'm chasing something that's not really serving me. And
Exactly.
so I got recently asked by a buddy like how I'm finding the time to do all of this healthy crap. And I was like, honestly, I just stopped doing the unhealthy things. Like I want to know how The Walking Dead ends, but not that bad. And so I do yoga instead of find out if Rick Grimes is really dead or not. Like I don't care that much. But there were, I mean, years where it was like, okay, work is done, Mia is in bed, the dogs are asleep, like everything's cool. And then I would just sit and have a couple of cocktails and kind of zone out and just chill for the night. And then, that was basically it. And it was like I'd look forward to just sitting and watching season 2 of Narcos again or something. And then I finally got to where I was like, man, like Ryan, how can you expect to be happy if this is how you're spending your time? This is the goal that you want over here. And it's just literally logic. If I spend time doing X, will it get me closer to this goal? If the answer is no, then don't fucking do it.
Right.
But that's such a hard thing when most of us, it is the watching TV shows or drinking or, you know, whatever your fix is. I mean, we've all got something, but I finally realized that mental health came first because until you can get to where you check in with yourself enough that you have the compassion again, that you force yourself to give up those fun but not really good things, you're not going to have the dedication. You might have motivation, but you won't have the conviction to actually stick it out and to start making the changes. And that's where once I
Hmm.
began fixing my mental health, then all of a sudden I began fixing my physical health.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you're making with, replacing those unnecessary tasks with things that you enjoy and also are necessary for growth. Um, that's one of the things I used to do in cognitive behavior therapy is I wrote down a log of everything I did hour to hour, like how was this? I rated it on a scale of how important it was and how much I enjoyed it. Um, and then at that point, I can just almost like an Excel file sheet, I'll just unplug one of them and let's try plugging in something I like. Um, at the time, it was like, okay, instead of watching, I mean, yeah, a lot of us, it's watching TV or just sitting around eating. Um, do we need to do that right now? No. So I'm going to plug in, let's practice some scales in guitar. Like I always tell myself I want to be better at guitar because there's so many better guitarists that I even know. So I want to learn more about it. So I'm plugging in some scales in that time and, work on some new songs, maybe write a little bit, and kind of realize that those things that are more productive to what you enjoy, as a hobby or as a productive form of entertainment rather than I don't know how to say it, for lack of a better term, an unproductive form of entertainment such as TV or a more relaxed version of it. It definitely helps my mood because I was able to do something that was goal oriented, that was, rewarding and such and that. I had another point I was going to make, but it'll come back to me. Something along the lines of Finding that balance too, not to say that you're going to fail if, you want to watch the season finale of Walking Dead. I don't watch that. If you want to watch the season finale of Walking Dead, but you also have this to do, you know what, make time for both. Not make time for both, but
Yeah, you kind of
compromise your time.
maybe, well, yeah, because maybe there is something else that does have to go. So there's a third thing that day, or you may be doing your workout, during the show. So you're laying on the sit up, or you're laying on the floor doing sit ups while watching the show, sort of thing. I
Right.
think a lot of people, you'd find that if you just start utilizing time a little bit better, think of all the time that, you say, oh, well, I don't have time to work out because I got to do X, Y, and Z with the kids. Well, a lot of us, as we're sitting there at the dinner table, we're on our phones, we're not interacting. Well, that's a moment that you can not only be tackling dinner, but you can be tackling finding out about their day, doing, math homework, quizzing them on something. So multitasking effectively is definitely a big factor there, that I think, like, just getting more efficient and being smarter about cutting out a bunch of the stuff that doesn't really get you to your purpose. And at the end of the day, like, it's no wonder that you play guitar, you feel better than if you would have watched TV, because you really want to be a better guitar player. You don't really care if you're the number one fan of that TV show. And so at the end of the day, it's like you got one step closer to actually fulfilling yourself. And that's something that intrinsically you're going to be happy about. Watching the TV show is just an extrinsic. It felt good to just do nothing in that moment, but that's not really satisfying.
Right. And it's about finding that balance between those two things too. Is like, I am a big proponent of, healthy eating and whole foods. But there are times where, Claire wants to go to bed and she's like, do you want to grab the ice cream tub? And I'm like, sure. You know what? Like, if I could spare a few calories to say, like, I'm going to have some ice cream, because it's not essentially about me splurging on ice cream. It's about that interaction between Claire and I, like sharing something we enjoy and just having time together. So it's those moments where you shouldn't feel guilty for, not you're falling off your diet or eating something that's deemed as bad food. It's totally human to want to have, something that's not something like Cheerios.
Yeah.
Like, where it's not the best food. Cereal is crap for the most part. But you know what? At the end of the day, I like to have a bowl of cereal before bed. Is that wrong? No. Keeps me sane.
That is true,
Helps
right?
help you
Like
sleep.
sanity. That's where, like, I tried like the Whole30 thing once and whatnot. I mean, yeah, it was effective, but like that wasn't a lifestyle for me. And
Right.
even right now, like, I'm in this bulking period, and so I've got a friend that's done physique competitions. I know that chicken and rice is a very effective way of bulking, but like I can't stay sane and do that shit. And so for
Mhm.
me, I find ways that I'm going to do it, but I'm still going to eat some bread. Like, I'm going to eat a little bit of cheese. I'll cut it down. I'll make sure it's good bread. It's, a whole wheat versus Wonder Bread. But yeah, like I just won't go to that extreme. And that's where I think a lot of these fad things, whether it's a workout program or it's these weird diets that are super restrictive, people have to realize, like, your diet should be your lifestyle. It should be something that
Right.
you don't mind waking up and eating overnight oats every morning. Like, you kind of enjoy overnight oats, because if you don't, stop fucking eating them and make yourself, an English muffin and some turkey sausage or something. Like, no one's putting a gun to your head and saying this is the only way to lose weight. You have to
Eat
find
those
a way to
fucking overnight oats or I'll shoot you. Like, the only,
like
and
some
to
apple
be
cinnamon oats, dude. I'm all for it. Love them.
right. But that's the thing though too, is metaphorically we kind of all put that gun to ourselves, where like we tell ourselves like, I can't have that donut, it's sitting in front of me, I can't eat it, because if I eat it I'm going to feel guilty later, I'm going to feel so guilty, I'm going to be sad. And those are real feelings. I've had those feelings. I have, pushed down those feelings so many times, and I'll go for weeks and I'll be like, I'm eating so well. But you know what? The first like lick I have of a donut, I'm eating 17 of them.
I just can visualize you as like
Oh,
as
you've seen me
Ben
do that.
Ben Stiller in Dodgeball, where he's got like the pizza in front of him and he's shocking himself.
He's just like that.
Yeah. Ah, ah. Yeah, like see, I can't join you there on donuts. Those really aren't my thing. But like potato chips, if you open up a bag of
Ooh,
potato chips, especially like the red Doritos, I'm gonna eat 3 fucking bags every time.
yeah. Yeah, everyone's got their kick, like it's sweet or salty for most people. And it's just about finding that space, like what can I eat in the day if I know later on I'm gonna have like a donut. So for example, at Exercise Abilities, we had donut Fridays a lot. We haven't had them in a while because COVID and sharing food in the office was a little bit taboo. I kind of eased back into it. But, yeah, donut Fridays was a big thing and we'd always have it. So I would know like, okay, for lunch, I'm not gonna bring my typical like bodybuilder meal of like a sweet potato or rice with some type of protein and a veggie. I'm going to bring a little bit less carbs because I know I'm going to get carbs out of my donut, or I'm going to get carbs out of like cookies that a client brings for us. Um, just to kind of have that balance in mind that I'm planning ahead. I'm setting myself up for success rather than, tearing myself down later on and finding out that, oh, I went 3,000 calories over my daily intake today. Now I have to compensate for that. And that's just something that I've learned that destroyed my mental health. I was super low all the time because I'd be sad that I broke my diet and that I ate too much one day, and I tried to overcompensate and eat way less the next day. And my body was just saying, like, hey, dude, what the fuck are you doing to me? So it's it's a struggle to kind of learn how to eat in a sense, like not a lot of people know what is good food, what is quote unquote bad food, and what a protein, what a carb, what a fat is. And it's
and I think that you're spot on too. I think that there's that emotional side where, we fail at our diet one day, and so then we punish ourselves the next day by being like, okay, if you're just going to be a fat fuck, then I guess you can really be a fat fuck. And then you force feed yourself the 17 donuts. And it's like, well, no, today was a new day. Like yesterday, you are not a bad person. You're a good person that did a bad thing. Don't eat 17 more donuts today. But
yeah,
like if you can separate that, and if you can view yourself, I mean, for me, it's not so much with eating, but like booze was like that. I'm the type of person where I'm not going to drink every day, but if you give me one shot and one beer, I want 12. And so like I had to learn that like you have to avoid triggers and you have to start to change your lifestyle, but every once in a while you're going to get caught up and you're going to make a bad choice. And on those next mornings, you need to think real good and hard about that stomach ache and that headache and go, is it fucking worth it? And what did I learn yesterday? But then move on from it, because
yeah,
I used to just be like, well, I guess now, I did it last night. I'll just wait till Monday. On Monday, I'll get back on my wagon and whatnot. And so I'd have like 2 good days of relapse. And then, I tried again, but I'd relapse again on a Wednesday. And then like, well, I'll just wait till next week. And so like I think that's the defeatist mentality. And once you shift your mindset and you separate away from it and you start being proactive, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is a little bit more feasible. I do have a way of changing.
right. Do you still drink now, or are you completely sober?
Right now I'm to a point where I've given myself a rule where I'll only have 2 drinks on any day. And so far, that's been going. This is actually a hopped tea, so it's a green
I've
tea
seen
with
those. Are they
like
good?
hops. Yeah, like it actually tastes similar to like a lager. So at the beginning, it actually was like cutting the actual craving for beer. Now I actually just love it, and so now I just drink it because I enjoy it. But it
Right.
truly was like for a while, like I do really good, and I do these little things where I'm like, okay, on any given day, I'm only gonna have two drinks, and it was pretty easy. Well, now I've gotten to a point where like I'm so focused on getting to like 9% body fat that I don't really drink because I have a goal. Like I want to get
Yep.
ripped. And so it's easy to be like Monday through Friday evening, like, nope, I'm not going to drink anything. Fine. But then, if I get together with people on a Friday evening and people are drinking, then that's the night that I'm like, okay, well, I'll have one or two. And as soon as I have one or two, the little devil on my shoulder is like, just have eight. And so then at that point, like that's where I had to get to the point where I told myself, like, you can have two, but that's it. Because there's times, right, where like and I go out for a steak or whatnot. Like I still like a glass of red wine, but I'm at a point in my life now that I've grown up around alcoholics. I've seen what it can do and whatnot. I am breaking that cycle so that my daughter isn't going to be surrounded by that. And so for me, I'm at the point where if one or two more things that I kind of have put in this box of like the cannot happens, if that happens, then at that point the rule has to become zero, because I'm scared to maybe make that leap because never drinking again seems extremely daunting. But those are the moments that I really think of Mia, and that's that carry the weight mentality that I talk about, where I may not be able to do it for me in this moment because I'm scared, but I have to be able to carry the weight of breaking the cycle for her. And that gives you that extra level that you can tap into that really gets you kind of hammered home.
That's such a cool way to put it, to be honest. Like, it's for me, I was realizing that drinking was a big trigger for me for, binge eating, or just feeling like guilty about, instead of eating all day, I just changed all my calories to be alcohol. Well, that really wasn't helping my, gains in the gym. It wasn't helping my progress. It wasn't helping my performance and anything. So I was like, I need to find a way to control it a bit more. So I think probably within the last year and a half, I've been more conscious about what I'm drinking and how much I'm drinking. More or less, it comes down to like, if I'm going to drink, I'm going to enjoy the thing I'm drinking. So a
Yep.
lot of times people want to go out and they just want to, let's go just grab a case of Bush. And I'm like, no, I'm not drinking Bush. I don't care what the fuck we're doing. I'm
Yep.
going to find some nice ass beer, or find a nice bottle of, a bourbon or tequila that I like, and I'll just sip on that. The biggest thing for me has been, right now I'm doing dry January. So that's like just taking my month off, seeing how I feel, and I feel great. And then at the same time, Claire's been having some issues with alcohol too. So she's not drinking for a time period. And we both are talking to each other like, it's kind of nice. Like, I don't want to feel like I have to drink. When I go visit my friends, I'm okay with having one. And then I'm okay after that. But it's a process. And I'm sure, like, through your experience too, like having that little devil on your shoulder is really hard to ignore at times, where I'm like, yeah, I'll just have a few more. Claire's driving, I'll do this and that, and not really care. But at the same time, it's like, is it worth it to just keep drinking like 7 White
Yeah.
Claws?
Well, and right, like, yeah, like you're gonna sit there and drink seven white claws. Like, okay, they're not bad, but they're not that good that I would normally
Exactly.
drink seven of them, right? And so like I kind of began with that same thing of like, anything that I do now, I try to savor it. Like if it's not
Yeah.
something that I can savor, then why am I wasting my time, my money, my calories, my whatever on something that I don't even enjoy it enough to take a breath and enjoy that moment. So like it doesn't make as much sense to me anymore, the way that drinking used to. But it also used to be for me like a way that I could escape. And so that was where, once my mental health got to a certain point, I was so unable to be vulnerable and admit that anything was wrong, that I was just hiding behind this mask a lot of the times of just being a funny guy. So like I was always making jokes no matter what. And it becomes so exhausting to try to remember which of the masks like you're wearing and which web of lies you're spinning and whatnot, that then like eventually you just try to like avoid everything, or at least that's the case for me. And so I really feel like there was a period of time where I got to where like I wanted to change really bad, but I just didn't have the courage yet. I finally knew that it was wrong wearing these masks, and that I needed to be better if I was ever going to be able to be the dad that I wanted to truly be, not just the one that I wanted Facebook Ryan to be. And yeah, man, it's been a long journey, but one that mental health was key to really unlocking the door to a lot of other things.
Hmm. Definitely. It helps a lot to know that when you're at a better place mentally, it just kind of heightens your sense for wanting to better yourself in other places.
So you are one of the only actual rock and roll stars that I know. Is Fire at the Falls still getting together and playing shows?
We haven't played a show since 2019 because of the pandemic, unfortunately. We had shows lined up in 2020 that were at the end of March and in early April, right when shutdowns began. Since then, we haven't had anything. I've been to the bar that we typically play at, which is Kathy's, and they don't have shows yet. There's a couple bars here that do have shows, but I don't know how they're doing, or they did while there wasn't a shutdown or restrictions on restaurants and such. Um, but to kind of suffice for that, I actually am starting my own, not my own, but like a little solo project album that I've been working on with my bass player Elijah, and that's actually been a lot of fun to kind of like work on and have some different sounds going on. I obviously have had like Brian's on one of the songs. Elijah has been producing and doing bass. I'm doing everything pretty much, making me sound like an actual musician. And then kind of going through that has been kind of my release for music over the past year. Um, it's sad not playing a show. And I was actually recording on Sunday with Elijah, and that was the first time we had Brian in our studio with us to do his part on one of my songs. And I was looking around, I was like, there's Elijah, there's Brian, and there's me, and all we're missing is Roy or Abe to be in our drummer. And I'm like, where was this? We haven't all three of us gotten together since 2019, and it was a little bit like bittersweet because I miss being able to go and do shows, and I miss being able to just go wild on stage. And like I shouldn't say this on things, but I get free drinks while I'm there, and I had to give them to all my friends instead of me drinking them. But like that's like I'm like, come to my show, I'll give you the drinks I get. I don't want to drink them all that I'm playing on the show. Like I used to have a few drinks while I play, and it's fun to have like one before you go. But after a while, I just would have a drink on there, and it would just get warm because I wouldn't be doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Um, but I miss it. I want to get back out there and start playing as soon as we're allowed to, and as soon as everyone in the band feels comfortable with it. But this is my advice right now, is writing some different kind of music and hopefully getting an album out in the next couple months.
Well, that's that's the one, I guess, silver lining about COVID, is that it does give us time. That like it's cool that you got to do a solo project that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have done because you guys would have been doing shows and whatnot. I
Hmm.
don't know that I would have slowed down enough to get into the personal training thing had it not been for the fact that we're trapped at home. So it didn't really feel like as much of a burden to have to go through courses and whatnot. So I'm
Hmm.
glad there was a silver lining. But with going on stage, so we've talked a lot about kind of how mental health can just be a challenge with anything. But as some clients are looking at trying to get into something for the first time. So maybe they're going to do a hobby and they're afraid to either join a gym where they're going to be laughed at or they don't know anyone, something like that. How how do you work up the courage to get on stage and play in front of a whole bunch of people?
So for me, it was a big thing of with guitar, learning more and more about guitar, learning how to play the songs, going through practices. It was nerve wracking to think that like I can play it, I can play it, I can play it. But then when I brought it on the stage, I was so afraid of like um, falling off, not falling off, but falling off my song. I had a notification come up, like finding my place in the song or playing wrong notes. And I was just so worried about that and sat on that performing wasn't really that great. After a while, I kind of put together that most people don't know how they how to play the song or the guitar. So if I fuck up, no one's really gonna know if it's like I played one string wrong in a multitude of an hour long, 4 hour long set. And I think that kind of comes back to fitness in the sense that everyone is starting at some place. Everyone has some goal they're reaching towards. And for someone to reach out to themselves and think like, I want to do this, what is the first step? The first step is kind of putting yourself into that situation and getting a game plan together and starting that. Um, with guitar and with performing, it's a little bit different because I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, which is weird because I'm only 26.
Right.
I'm 26, holy shit. But that's kind of the case. Is like now I go on stage and I still get a little bit of jitters, but I'm just so familiar with the place now that I'm okay with, messing up. I'm okay with dropping a pick. I'm okay with a string breaking. I'll just take my guitar off and put it off. I kind of realized that, especially like in the scene that everyone is watching me, nobody cares. So
Yeah, dude.
as an individual going to a gym, there's some people going to a gym that if there's one person that looks at you because you're doing something wrong and is that person laughing at you, probably no one likes that guy at the gym either. So
Right.
like you just joined a mass group of people who also hate that guy.
Right. That's like I kind of call that like the white belt mentality where, I for years put off joining martial arts because like I was like, well, I'm
Hmm.
23 and I don't want to be the 23-year-old that's in there, getting his ass kicked by kids, so I'm not going to do it. And then, a couple of years go by sort of thing and I think about doing it again. I'm like, well, I'm 28, so I mean, I'm already getting close to 30. So I joined jujitsu at 32 and I finally had just the humility to go in there and be like, you know what? I don't care. I've always wanted to learn this. I thought it was cool. And now my biggest fear, right, was like getting laughed at and people being mean and all this shit. And I get in there and everyone's cool. Everyone's like, the ones that have more experience are willing to teach you because it helps them to learn it even better by
Yes.
demonstrating the moves, right? So like my big fear is like, oh, well, these experienced guys are going to be laughing at me because they don't want to help, when all of that was inside of my own head. And so I think if you can have that white belt mentality that like you're going to know really quick whether or not you're at a shit gym or not by if you walk in and people really are pricks, then just cancel that membership because like you really did go to a bad place. Because
Yeah.
whether it's a gym or like martial arts sort of stuff, if they actually are built on good principles, people are going to want to help you up because, exactly to your point, everyone started out as that white belt at some point. And so you don't want to take out, anything on that person. You want to help that person to grow because ultimately then you have more people that are like-minded. And that, especially after what we've seen throughout the last year, that sense of community and togetherness is one of the things that makes, to me, fitness as a beautiful thing. Is it really can be this thing that brings people together. I kind of look at,
Mhm.
for years, the thing that brought me and a lot of my circles together was booze. And so I saw, as I chased that, what type of life that got me into. Well, if fitness can be that thing together, and on Saturdays we go to the park and go paddle boarding instead of drinking, think of how much different your life could be through just, some simple things like that.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said people want to kind of like teach you because it teaches them again. I love having students and new techs come like work at our clinic. And right now we're trialing our new teams. So like I'm like this pilot study of me, a student, and a tech kind of working as one unit to look at our clients and having our students come in and kind of telling them like this is my client A, we're working on goals like this and that, we're doing those through these movements, this is why those work. And it kind of reminds me like what I'm doing, why I'm doing this for this client. And it ultimately makes me feel better to kind of have that conversation with somebody. And not gonna lie, a lot of our students are smarter than me. So it's nice to have their feedback too, to kind of tell me like, hey, what do you think? Because I don't know this much. I don't have exercise science background like you do right now. Can you tell me like what you would do in this situation, and we'll kind of talk about it. And in the same sense, you can do that with a new person at a gym. If you see someone struggling with something, you don't come up to them and make fun of them, or you don't take videos of them and mock them on the internet. You see if they want some help, or you encourage them for being there. It's so much better to see people at the gym and seeing them in a light of like, look at them trying to better themselves rather than look at them humiliate themselves. Because if you're in one A or B of those mindsets, there's a good chance that you look at yourself that way as well.
Yep. Yeah, and I think a lot of people's idea in their head is that of like high school gym, and they still kind of see all the just stupid, shitty kid behavior. But
Mhm.
as adults, I have found the opposite. Whether it's you're at a triathlon event, or you're at the gym, or you're in a martial arts dojo sort of thing. I mean, people at that point that we're adults and we're in fitness, everyone's out there to try to just be the best that they can be. No one cares about, cutting people down.
Right. It's, and I think, again, you said it best when having that circle of friends that you enjoy drinking around was I mean, for me too, I have such a different group of friends now with people who used to drink, in the sense that I'm all friends with a lot of the people I work with because we're all into the same goals. We all enjoy fitness. We all enjoy being active in some way. I've joined a basketball team with one of my coworkers. I start hanging out with more of the coworkers that are living here in Rochester, or I see people at the gym and I just kind of talk with them when we're doing similar movements. And turns out, hey, we like the same things, we do the same kind of workouts, and we just kind of chat and talk. It's kind of like you're building new peers and you're building a new environment to kind of surround yourself with. Not that you still should get rid of your old friends, because there's a reason you still like them, but there's a good reason to make new friends as well, because you're building healthier habits and you're building a new kind of mindset, and you're also just expanding yourself as a person and growing
Yeah.
your reach.
And I definitely I think it was my mom that said this before, but like relationships are like trees, where like you've got some friends that are like your core branches, those real big giant ones that you can hang the tires from and whatnot. And then you have other friends that are still pretty big branches. They're going to be around for maybe 10 or 15 years, but eventually, if there's a big enough storm, or just through, aging, they actually might fall off at some point. And then you got twigs, and those are the people that come and go all of the time. And, you're 26, you said, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm 32 now. And so, like, from that kind of late 20s to early 30s, that's where I think you feel one of the biggest shifts, because like, at least for me, like all of a sudden people start having kids, and you're either at the beginning of that wave, or for me, I guess we were kind of in the middle of it. But like, I got to a point where I was like, well, I'm too old and responsible now that I have a pregnant wife and a young baby to go out with all the crazy youngins. But I'm still not, my kid's not old enough where we have play dates and stuff. So I don't have all these other parent or like friends and whatnot. And you kind of get lost. Like, it's easy. Those big shifts and those changes can be really easy to rock the boat enough that like you're just like, man, I thought I wanted one thing, and then the next thing you know, you want something totally different. And friendships are one of those things that may kind of change in that time where you have some of those bigger branches fall off, and that's that's a fact of life. And so as long as you look at that as, okay, I'm growing, I'm expanding, I found this new circle of friends, it'll make that impact of losing that branch a lot less traumatic, because that's just a natural thing. You're shedding a skin, you found something new here. Otherwise, you look at that as a real negative event, and that's, I think, where a lot of people kind of start the rumination and whatnot.
Exactly. I think, sorry, my throat got dry. A big part of like me hanging on to people and hanging on to certain relationships with friends like that I haven't spoken with in years, it kind of, at times it still like hurts when I see like, oh, here's this person, like, oh, I used to be such a good friend with them, I haven't talked with them in years, and then I see like, why haven't I talked to them? Has it been, was it a negative reason, or is it a positive reason, or is it just growth? So I kind of have to reevaluate every time I do that. But then once you accept that this person isn't in your life anymore for whatever reason, it's much easier to kind of let go of that feeling of like attachment. And that's totally okay. If they come back in your life, they do. Like, there's doors and are opening, closing all the time. Like, I've
You
rekindled friendships with, like some friends from high school that I haven't talked to in a long time, but we'll hang out with once in a while. If I see a friend that I haven't seen in 3 years, I'm still like, hey, how are we doing? Like, tell me about your life. I want to know more. It's kind of those things. Especially think as men, I see this with indifference between Claire and I is she'll ask me like, well, is that even your friend? I'm like, yeah, that's my friend. They're like, when was the last time you talked with them? Oh, like 4 years ago. But that's like my brother. You know what I mean? Like, that's my brother. Like, I think this is referring to Cole actually too. And I was like, when's the last time you talked to Cole? I was like, I don't know, but like, he's never not my friend.
Yeah, those are like those core people where it's like you can go three,
Exactly.
4 years and not talk, but like the second that you do, it's basically like nothing's changed. You pick right up. A lot of the people that I got deployed with are my core people, where when I think of the people that will go a solid year and we won't talk, and then somebody will be like, hey, you want to go to France? And it's like, yep, I'm booking the ticket tonight. We're doing it.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, because you were deployed long time ago now. What, 8 years ago? 7, 6,
Man,
8,
that
9,
was
10?
2008, so 12.
Oh my God, 12 years
Almost,
ago.
yeah, almost 13 years ago.
And
I
to
was a
think, because
baby,
you were
dude.
there for how long again? A year? A little bit less?
For 6 months. Yep.
Okay. Just to think of that 6 month period was that so influential on like the people that you still like associate with, because it's such a big impactful moment of your life to be deployed overseas. You and those people are the only ones who share that experience, so it's hard to let go of that. And thankfully you have those people that are still in your life in a positive way, and they're not like deteriorating your mental health because they are negative people. They like to share negative things and such.
Yeah.
I have a couple friends from my time in Australia where um, we don't talk all the time, but I went out and visited him last October and a couple of years prior to that, and it's like time doesn't change. We're both the same people. Like, we interned with each other at the same place. and both have the shared experience of doing music therapy and being in Australia and just getting into trouble there. And it's fun to think about that stuff, and you don't let go of it. Not that
Yeah.
we're hanging on because we're clinging to that young point in our life.
You know, it's funny because like you start really seeing that cycle change, especially after you get married for sure, but then kids, you know, like when I think of like the last time I got together with all of my friends from college, like we got together at a campground. We have almost as many kids as adults running around there now and whatnot.
No.
I mean, you're fighting to stay awake later than the kids are. There's no more binge drinking or anything like that because someone's got to be responsible. And like,
Right.
it's funny because like we start looking at each other, we're like, how the hell did this happen? And it's like, well, it's been 12 years since college. I mean, when I think of back then, like, man, it just goes so fast. So I guess if there's still anyone listening to us at this point, once I post this, like if there's anything to take away from this point, it's like put some time into those friendships that are your foundational rocks. You know, now's as good as time as any to pick up the phone and just have that one conversation, you know, and
Mhm.
tap into that because I think a lot of times when life feels really just out of sorts and really overwhelming, it's because we start listening to a lot of the noise, and we sometimes need just that grounding force of those type of people to be like, look, you know what, like we've done X and that's way worse than this, and there's just those certain people that can really cut through and get you back down and focused, and then from there hopefully you can take it on yourself.
Mhm. And even if it's not those people directly that are helping you, those people will find resources for you if they are those branches.
Yeah.
There's Claire was that branch to me that set me to, seek out therapy and do things like that. And because of that, like my therapist isn't my branch, but like it was because of Claire that I got the help I needed. And I can do that on my own now, not have to feel like I'm putting all of my burdens on her and challenging and putting more emphasis on her mental health now. So to kind of put that in perspective was something that was tough to learn, but it was just an essential part of growing.
Dude, we're gonna have to do a second one of these where we talk through just like mental health and having like that support framework there because like for me it honestly was Cole. When Cole moved down here the second time and moved
Hmm.
back in, um I would not have kicked substance abuse if it wasn't for him. He was like the most patient, wise Yoda, which is so weird because you guys
Because,
are so much younger than me. But
right.
like I just for the first time ever, I was an idiot, and Cole was the one that needed to just like break things down in the most simplistic of ways. And I'm sure I drove that kid crazy, but
Well, I mean, in the same sense, like you were Master Yoda for Cole, Ben, me, Roy,
that
and
boot camp torture game that I invented for you guys was the best thing ever.
prison ball.
Yeah.
um, God, but then yeah, because Cole has gone through some shit and he has come out of it like incredibly well. I am so happy for like his journey out of it. And that's a topic for another day. Kind of, I don't want to just talk about Cole, but he has his own kind of experience that was um, just incredible to kind of witness and see from an outside perspective because it wasn't the same as seeing like someone's YouTube video of like my story. This was like your brother, my friend, growing up together as kids and seeing the issues present themselves and then him directing those issues and becoming who he is now, the
Yeah.
little
Well,
punk
and to
rock
see
anarchist
someone,
guy.
I mean, when Cole gave up booze permanently, he was 19. Like he's been clean for
Yeah.
over six years from it now. And like to at 19 years old to have just had the wisdom to like have learned a lesson. It took me until 30 before I learned shit. I mean,
Right.
I
Cole couldn't
look
legally
back.
drink before he realized he couldn't drink.
Yeah, and but I think a lot of the problem for me was on paper. If you looked at me during my 20s, I was poster child. I mean, graduated top of my class and then went on. I did the military. I volunteered abroad at an orphanage. I get my master's. I work in banking. I started getting promoted. And so, like on paper, you're like, well, this guy's wonderful. And it's like, well, I'm like a duck on the surface. I look all calm and whatnot, but my feet are kicking like crazy.
Hmm.
And Cole was just smarter. Cole kind of learned his truths at a younger age and then said, I'm not doing it anymore. And hats off to him. Cause I mean, yeah, we can have a whole nother chat about mental health and the craziness of that.
Hmm.
But all right, well, I want to close it with if you have one top piece of advice that you could give me, trainer to trainer, what would that be?
I wrote a couple down. um, I'm trying to think of what the best one I want to give you is. And you know what? I think it might be just know your role as a trainer and don't be obsessed. Um, and by that, I mean, as a trainer, you have your certifications, um, you have your practice, and to start overreaching into other practices will only lead you down a role of what ifs or was that correct. Um, Too many times I want to say things about nutrition to clients. I like to think I know a lot about nutrition, but myself, I'm not certified. I don't have any kind of nutrition background besides what I know personally. So I don't want to give someone advice on nutrition and have that come back to me in a negative way. It's really, really easy to say, oh, just do deadlifts all the time. They're the best exercise. My client doesn't have legs. I can't tell them to do deadlifts, you know?
Right.
So to kind of just know that role, and as well as what was the other one I said? Don't be obsessed. So to put that in perspective is your client will see what you give them. If you come off as someone who is obsessed with their exercise or obsessed with a certain thing about the exercise or A, B, and C, it might come off that that client has to be that way in order to succeed. You have to find that balance with them and let them know that things across, like progress is not a linear line. It's very steady. There's lots of ups and downs, and it's okay to think of fitness as something that aids your life, not something your life has to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point that, that's part of the reason that when I got the tactical fitness one, that I know something about that. I know I can use years of my own just doing obstacle courses and military experience and all that makes sense to me. But like I don't want to get out there and start trying to explain bodybuilding to people. I don't know the first thing about Olympic lifting. I don't know about machinery. And it's just not something that I really wanted to learn. And so I think trying to be authentic and know your limits of, if you don't know about nutrition from that certified standpoint, then yeah, own that, because I think that you're a better trainer to be humble and to know to be within those
Mm-hmm.
lines than to try to overextend and be that YouTube channel that's doing something that they have no
Right.
idea what they're doing, and then you get people hurt.
And on that line too, it's totally okay to tell somebody like, hey, I don't know the answer to the question you're asking, but I might know someone who does or a specialist who does. And like I said before, I have the privilege of working with people who have their doctorate in physical therapy or are athletic trainers or that sort of thing, where I can be like, you know what, I don't know why your knee is cracking or your hip is popping. Let me ask somebody and have them come over here and take a look at it for you, because they're going to have a better synopsis of what's going on than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, thank you. It's been awesome to catch up. It seriously has
Yeah, this is
been like the
awesome.
last time that I remember seeing you, you were like a boy still.
I was a boy with little boy boobies and a little boy belly. And I have right now I have a little bit less of that, but underneath it all is we'll see about that.
I do remember like the first time that you friended me on Facebook, at least a couple of years had passed. And I remember at that point being like, Jesus, when did it go from me like torturing Alex to like, I don't know that I'd fight that dude anymore. I was like, he outweighs me for sure. He's a lot bigger.
Right. So at the end of high school, sorry, I'm dragging this on, but at the end of high school, I was like 215 and not in shape. And so losing weight all my life or all since college was like the big goal. And now like this past year I've spent like bulking up, like trying to get stronger. And now I'm back up to 200 and I'm crazy in my head right now. Like my mind is saying like, dude, what are you doing? But it's all for a purpose. It's tied in because I'm gonna shed it off. I'm gonna become a beautiful shredded butterfly. I'm gonna fly my way to Hawaii for my wedding and just look great. And get married.
When is the wedding date?
April 18th. So
All right.
Claire and I are eloping there, and we're just making a week in Hawaii and doing our thing.
Nice, dude. Yeah, I mean that gives you 2.5 months or so to just get cut. Yeah.
It's shred time, yeah.
And
Master shredder.
exactly what I was talking about before. I mean, like you have that event or that thing that makes the training worth it now. And so
exactly.
You can put that date and look at the little tiny pooch and go, no, I'm not bringing you with. It's carry on only.
Poopa no more. All right, man. Well, it was great again. Like I want to do this again sometime, and I actually want to give you I'll message you some contact information for some people that you could also reach out to, because I think you'd have a good chat with them as well.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I really want kind of my page here to just be a place where hopefully at some point people will come here and just, they'll sit like a podcast. They'll go for a walk and listen to us two dudes ramble for a bit, but hopefully learn a little something. So
right. Hopefully.
All right, man. Well, you have a great night and we will chat soon.
All right. Peace out, man.